Mr. Speaker, the United States must never relinquish its sovereignty. Without question, we must work to ensure that, in the eloquent words of President Lincoln during the Gettysburg Address, this government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. The power bestowed upon our government is derived from the will of the American people, not by foreign governments or organizations that siphon away our money as if we were a cash cow. Foreign entities such as the World Health Organization, or WHO, should never be allowed to corrode America's sovereignty and hand down edicts to the American people. We charter our own course, and we will not be deterred from doing so. We should be even more skeptical of foreign entities like the WHO that are bedfellows with Communist China. China and its international cabal of bureaucrats would love nothing more than to have the United States follow their direction and their direction of their puppets like mindless lemmings. They are hell-bent on controlling our God-given freedoms at the expense of our livelihoods. This cannot and will not be allowed to stand. My amendment strengthens the underlying bill to ensure that H.R. 1425 will slam the door on any attempt to allow international bureaucrats at the WHO to undermine U.S. sovereignty and the will of the people. My amendment clarifies that no WHO convention, agreement, or other international instrument on pandemic prevention, preparedness, or response can have any force or effect in U.S. law before or unless the Senate ratifies such treaty. This includes the clarification that no WHO agreement may be used to establish standing, to sue under U.S. law, or to challenge U.S. agency actions. Only if the American people's representatives have spoken, with 2/3 of the Senate ratifying any WHO agreement, should it be allowed to have any impact on U.S. law. With that, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlelady reserves. For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
To claim the time in opposition to the amendment.
The gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chair, I oppose this amendment. The draft pandemic agreement advances global health security without impacting the United States' national sovereignty. The draft agreement explicitly states that it does not give the WHO any power to dictate specific policy to member nations, and that member states may implement the policies according to their own sovereign laws. Many of the issues the United States delegation in Geneva is currently negotiating in the draft pandemic agreement are to ensure a final agreement is in compliance with U.S. laws rather than subverting them. And so for these reasons and others, I strongly urge my colleagues to vote no on this misleading amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'm frankly surprised at my colleague for opposing an amendment that does nothing more than strengthen this piece of legislation. This amendment ensures that we do not violate our national sovereignty. I think it is the right thing to do. I urge my colleagues to support my amendment, and I reserve.
Gentlelady reserves. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Let me just say that it's explicit in the agreement that our sovereignty is not threatened. So this is duplicative, and that's why I oppose it. And I have no further witness, but I reserve the balance of my time. In fact, what I'll do even, I yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from North Carolina is recognized.
Could I inquire as to how much time I have?
Gentlelady has 1.5 minutes remaining.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. And I'm just going to reiterate what I said a few minutes ago. I respect my colleague from New York, but what harm does it do to put belts and suspenders on a bill? He says it's not needed. It takes up a few words more. It's not going to have any effect on the national debt, negative effect on the national debt, but it makes it abundantly clear that no organization, particularly the WHO, can order this country to do anything under any kind of an agreement without a vote of the United States Senate, as we would do with any kind of treaty or other agreement. So I urge my colleagues to vote for this amendment, strengthen the underlying bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.